Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly live stream. And before we dive into our exciting live stream about hurricanes and weather and kind of getting ready for that sort of thing, I want to introduce our West Coast contingent, Matt Hefner. He works out in our office in LA. He is an expert on weather. Actually, he's not, but he's lived.
I'm just really afraid of all of it.
He's really afraid of all weather. And we thought it'd be interesting to have this someone who, not to make it an East Coast, West Coast thing, but very much there's different things that happen out there that happen here. So we get a little perspective on it. So before we jump into our stream, I have to say thanks to all our regular viewers who join us every week. Check us out on YouTube. We're here every Thursday at 10:30, The Valiant Way Live. If you have any questions, please submit them to us. As I said, we're Valiant Technology. I'm George Dowderman, and our staff. We have some great people here every week. Marianne Borowski, who does our training management. Justin Pincina, our VCIO, or CIO for the company, and VCIO. And kind of, if you have a project done by us, Justin probably designed it. And I said Matt somewhere, and Matt's our man out in the West Coast. So it's good stuff. And if you have a chance, check out. We have a new collaboration guide that's dropping today. It's really good stuff about how to drive collaboration and growth, and there's some thought processes behind it. Not very technical, much more philosophical and things that thought provoking. So check it out, thevaliantway.com, the collaboration guide. So, but before we dive into our topics of hurricanes and weather and impact, let's hand it over to Justin for the download.
So you may have noticed earlier this week on Tuesday that a bunch of websites were down and offline. I believe CNN and The Verge and many of them were affected. And this was due to an outage with a service called Fastly and their content delivery network, or CDN service. A CDN is a way that you can get a global reach for your content in your servers without having to build your own global reach. It's sometimes called the cloud edge services. The idea is that you have, your web server, your data server, wherever you host your content, and especially video, let's say, you've got video that comes on your website through your web server, and that content gets copied to a bunch of these cache servers all around the world, connected to different networks, so that when somebody goes to watch that content or stream that video, they can get it from a node that is closest to them or responds fastest to them, making everything load much faster, respond much faster for them. So this outage was caused by a bug that was in their system that they were unaware of. It hit and was replicated across their network, was fixed very quickly. They were able to revert the code, fix it. It just took some time for everything to come back to normal because of the way that service works. All the content had to get reloaded from those origin servers, and that just takes some time for the cache to rebuild. Right. During that outage window, I'll talk about one thing that The Verge did, which was use Google Docs to publish their content online. And there's a couple things with this that I want to point out. First, they accidentally left the documents editable by everybody. So while they had stuff up, people were making changes to it, grabbing screenshots of the stuff that they put up. The first lesson there is, whenever you're sharing content outside of your organization, please double check the sharing and permission settings. But the second thing that this is a good example of is having an incident response or business continuity plan that accounts for disruptions in external services, not just your own. That this, given the fact that the settings were not set correctly, my guess is that this wasn't something that they had planned to do, and more somebody saying, hey, I've got an idea. And that's great. But now that they've done this, this should be something that they write down, build out in a plan, so that when they have a disruption again, they can enact the plan and say, well, this is what we're going to do. Right. And this is a really good exercise for any organization, any business to do, to look at things that are critical to your delivering your product, what your service, whatever it is that your business is delivering, and making sure that you have ways to work around any single points of failure, anything that can come down.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we did, what was it, 2 weeks ago or last week's episode, we covered some of this as well. We had a guest on and we talked a bit about doing an incident response plan. Yeah, and just another example of why that's something that's important to have. And that's this week's download.
Awesome. That's a great topic. And one, once again, go back to that tabletop, work through the problem, find out other stuff. I mean, Justin and I did it with a client yesterday. It's fascinating stuff you didn't even think about. And they tell you, they're like, oh, wait, we didn't even think about that. And we're like, we didn't even think about that. So it becomes that, and that's how these things get kind of done. It has to be this iterative kind of process.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I'm sure that person was like, knows how to do correct sharing. It's just because they didn't have the plan in place that wasn't on their checklist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
exactly.
So that's why we talked about that a lot last week, how important having that checklist is, because last week's stream, we really emphasize why it's important to have these steps in place for building operational resilience.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Everybody knows stop, drop, and roll, but you still remember that. You still get taught that, so that when it happens, you're not like, what do I do? What's the plan?
Do I stop first? I'm not sure. That's what it is. So that being said, I mean, operational resilience, and one of the here in the East Coast, New York is kind of the fringe edge of it, but we still definitely have experienced it in my lifetime multiple times. Is Atlantic hurricanes. It's a pretty fierce thing. When you see it in person, what happens, so just kind of little hurricane facts. I think it's important to hear. And so people kind of forget, it was last year, obviously with the pandemic and all the things happening, it was a really active hurricane season last year, right?
Yeah.
During the research for this live stream, you kind of think about it starts in May and September, but last year was super busy. Busiest and most expensive in record, and that's since 1935. So that's a pretty long stretch of historical data you're looking at. Obviously, whatever you believe, it was a very expensive and very complex event. Sorry, Matt. Thank you, Matt. The fifth most expensive. There's other ones in there that are more like Katrina. Down in some of those other Florida over the years.
Yeah.
So anyway. We saw last year 30 named storms, 12 hit the coast, 13 hurricanes. The average only 6, and 6 of those major hurricanes. And when there's 6, usually there's only 3. So it's $51 billion worth of damage, and that doesn't count. That's just dollars, but doesn't count like disruption and kind of human suffering aspect of it.
Absolutely.
It's we'll get to some personal experiences in a second, but I know for us, we didn't even think about hurricanes last year. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. We had a small, we talked about it, but it was not top of mind. And this year could be as bad as last year, or maybe worse. We don't know, right? You just never know how bad it's going to be. So I don't know, but you guys remember? I'm sure. I know for Matt and I were prepping this, there was a big hurricane in the 80s called Gloria, which was a big deal back in 1986. I remember being a kid going home from school and watching the storm come, right? And it was
I remember that too. I remember being at school and being like, there's a hurricane coming up, there's going to be a hurricane, and like just not really understand, like really
wrapping your head around it.
Yeah, because it was too little to really, the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah, Gloria, obviously there's Katrina in 2005 in New Orleans and some other parts of Louisiana, 1,800 deaths, $125 billion in damage, and just unbelievable devastation for a city. Even if you go to New Orleans now, it's still not fully rebuilt from that storm.
Because there keep being hurricanes. I mean,
right. Well, actually, it happened again in Harvey, right? They kind of got pieces of that.
Yeah.
Because of that, here in New York, the one that really impacted us recently was Sandy, which was not necessarily a hurricane when it hit New York, but it was a superstorm and a combination of factors. And we could talk for hours.
Shut so much down, and for years, are they still doing subway repairs? Right? Like,
I think. I mean, like literally, and the whole west side of Manhattan was inundated with water and destroyed all the copper network for Verizon on Chelsea and Soho. down there.
And as we're talking, like compounding hurricanes on top of another, Irma was the year before, and I think most of us in New York didn't get that badly impacted, but I know the Rockaways were devastated, and then before they even got a chance to completely rebuild, Sandy came. So like I think that's happens in a lot of parts of the country, is that it's not just the one event.
Right. It's exactly. And actually, the thing about Irma was that if you go to some parts of Vermont or up north, they got such devastation, just trees down, bursting banks of rivers. This is because the rain dumping. That's right.
Yeah.
And the last one this year, the last one that's a really big, there's a lot of big ones, but was a Hurricane Isaiah, which was a big storm last year, and we missed our stream.
Oh yeah,
we couldn't stream because Matt had no power. I know, Marianne, you had to do some repairs to your house.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal. And, so definitely. So, Matt, being an LA resident, you definitely dealt with wildfires last year. How was that? What happened now?
Well, I mean, the wildfires are significant out here. I've actually had a couple friends that lost their house in the Malibu fires, and they're actually still waiting to rebuild.
Right.
This is the one back in like 2019, I think,
Oh, wow.
It takes that long. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, along this topic, what I think of on the West Coast that impacts us the most would be earthquakes.
Right.
Yeah.
True. Natural disasters.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are getting the hurricanes on the East Coast, which I have experienced. I lived in Florida, put the storm shutters up, but you got some headway, you got some lead time with those.
It's true.
Earthquakes. I lived through the 94 Northridge earthquake, and I was like 2 to 3 hour drive from there. And it was like the apocalypse was coming. Like I remember jumping under a table with my mom and, doing that whole thing. My grandmother lived, like 20 minutes away, and stuff fell on her, broke her arm. I mean, and you talk about, we run a lot of cabling underground, and it's the ground that's breaking and shaking, so some major impacts there.
So you're saying in California is a not if, but when scenario for when it goes really bad?
Yeah.
The big one everyone talks about?
Yeah, basically, so everything in, my house and room are tied down or screwed to the walls or,
Right. I remember it's funny you say that. I remember years ago doing work in California and just going to a server room, and the rack had to be like bolted down to the floor, both on the floor and at the top side from like a ladder rack off. It was like totally different, like seismic packaging, like to make sure that everything stayed where it was supposed to. But think about being in a server room in the middle of an earthquake and all that.
Sometimes ours are on wheels.
Right, exactly. I know ours are on wheels. Exactly. I mean, an average server rack's like 3,000 pounds at this point. With like gears stuffed into it. So density. So it's so much going on. I mean, and also, if I remember correctly, you're a native of the Midwest of Oklahoma.
That's where I've bounced around America.
Right.
I used to do global relief before getting into tech, and so I've been a lot of places. Tornadoes in Oklahoma, though.
I was just saying tornado in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, because you're sitting in your living room watching the news, as you're watching your buddy's house just get pummeled.
Right.
And you're like, this is only 15-20 minutes away from me. Yeah. Right. Do I need to take shelter or something? And they're like, no, you're gonna be okay, but not your friend.
No, he lost everything.
Yeah. I think it was 2012, 2013, where they had that massive one out there that, an entire town was just demolished in a moment.
That's right. And it's like that, we kind of laugh at Twister, I finger God, man, but it's really one of those scary things. It's like a thunderstorm, and all of a sudden it's a tornado flying through the middle, and there's no control, there's no warning per se. So it's just terrifying.
You may have 30 minutes to an hour. You hear those sirens go off, but
I want to add really quick, just so you guys know, I was born during Hurricane Andrew, which is that'll be my tidbit for being late. But I remember my mom. I'm very operationally resilient since I was a baby. But yeah, my mother talked about Miami, which is like a huge urban center, was totally out of commission for 2 weeks in 1992. Anyway, Sorry, everybody, for being late.
No, it's okay, Megan. It's Megan's first day back in the office here in New York, in our office in Manhattan, in over a year and a half, almost a year and a half at this point. It feels like even longer since March of last year. So welcome back to the office. Really exciting.
Yeah, very excited.
Slowly building up our office presence so as the city opens up more. So now that we kind of go through what's happened, there's so much different outlook for hurricanes this year. We got some NOAA predictions saying that it's going to be 60% above normal. That's pretty high. So that means there may be another year of really busy hurricanes. So, we have kind of in this weird El Nino, La Nina switch over year. I'm no meteorologist, but I understand that has something to do with the way the weather pattern works and nothing good.
I understand that it's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where it's like if you talk to a scientist, it's like neither bad nor good. It just is. So, but it has impact. So,
but when we're talking about tech and uptime and operational resilience, it could potentially be very bad.
it could, yes, very much so. So now we kind of got this weather, all this terrible weather stuff is happening. What can we do? Like what's our Justin? I'm gonna let you kind of take the lead on this one. Matt, you too. You guys, where do you start?
I think it's similar to the 5 steps that we did last week on operational resilience, except we don't need to go into as much detail with the whole thing. I think the first thing is to evaluate the impact that weather is going to have on your ability to operate. Determine what sorts of things are potentially impacted by weather events, and determine what your tolerance is for those events to happen. If you're good being offline for a day, if the power is knocked out by a winter storm, then you're good being knocked out for a day when the power's knocked out. And as long as you are making that a decision, not just letting it happen, then that's a good place to start.
Right. I know in the past, pre-COVID, we always talked about like the winter storm or like a big weather event, sending people home to work. I think after a year plus of it, we've gotten pretty good at it. So we know what to do. So now I think it's more a matter of identifying the systems more so than the people. Whereas in the past, it was much more focused on people.
Yeah, definitely.
And space. I mean, we used to talk about like, what's your alternate office space? And I think we all kind of figured out it's the cloud.
Exactly. That's really true.
But then that enters in, that shifts the conversation to making sure that those systems are resilient as well. And I think that's part of the second thing is assessing your technology needs and the risks for that. So determining what sort of things can be affected by weather events or other events, versus things that won't be. So great example, to go back to Sandy, again, we saw in our clients a huge shift after Sandy to going to from in-house Exchange servers to Office 365 or other hosted
or Google.
Or Google. Yeah, because they're not affected in the same way by weather event. It's not going to knock out all of the data centers. It'll knock out your office, but your email will still work.
Right. Yeah. It's a private line business app, and even this is SaaS applications. It used to be in the past, everyone had these line of business applications that were called client server apps, and you had to be in the office to work on them, or it was a Clue GVPN to get to them. And now it's that's getting more and more rare. But that being said, you still have a physical space that you have to manage and maintain. But you have to still understand that, protect. How many times do you see people in Florida, as Matt said, putting the storm shutters down, getting ready for that storm? I know a number of MSPs in Florida, and they have a pretty robust hurricane prep, readiness drill they do every year because they live. And as Matt said, very important, they have to get the bread and milk because they said snow. That's only here in Northeast, though. I don't know that's true in Florida.
Toilet paper because
you don't want to run out. But yeah, I mean, there's so many places here. But here, and you start thinking about your office. Let's go back to the earthquake thing, right? And baying down racks. You want to be ready for that. You want to follow that code to make sure things don't fall on someone or hurt someone or just get ready for that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I think even simpler too, having a fire or waterproof safe to put your important documents in, and to make sure that it's stored properly. I have just a little Jeep fire flood safe that I keep important stuff in my house, but it's in the directions when you open it as well. If it's not locked with the latches closed, it's not fireproof. So
right,
Yeah.
it's
making sure
useless.
that not only that you have it, but that you're using it properly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So besides, obviously doing your risk analysis and getting ready for your space, what are some of the things you can do to kind of get ready for this sort of thing?
For me, what I think the biggest one is having a communication plan.
Absolutely.
Because like Marianne was saying before, we have people before, it was about people getting them where they're going to be, but it's still at the end of the day about the people and
Right.
making sure that your team is safe, knows how to communicate with you, and knows how to get work done. If you have a plan that says, look, in an emergency, this is how we're going to reach out to you, this is what to expect. Just like when you do your fire drill at home, where you say, like, okay, our fire drill plan is everybody get out of the house and meet at 7-Eleven on the corner, and that's what we're going to do, and then everybody knows to do that. And it's the same exact thing, having a plan so that people aren't wondering what they're supposed to do or where they're supposed to go, but know what it is that they're supposed to do.
I mean, it's so true, because I've definitely, and this is a little grim, but I've been in a situation where, in an office space where we thought there was a shooter, right? And I just remember onboarding at that company, and there's always that beginning conversation of, here's what we do in a fire, here's what you do in this scenario, and you always roll your eyes. And I can tell you, in that dead out sprint, I only made predetermined decisions. And to take it to like a business space, that's kind of how the ball gets dropped, because you didn't have a plan in place, and then you're forgetting some smaller details, and you forget to set those permissions on that Google Doc. I mean, actually works. It really does.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the classic statement is, you train how you fight, right? And if you never do the thing that you think you're going to do. And I suppose I'll bring a great comment from one of our viewers, Ray, who was on last week. But in Florida, we have to remind people to keep electronics off the ground. It's as easy if you do it year round. Yeah. And that's so true, because if you just have a thought process that, hey, this is we do this, like we plan for this thing, do it every time, and then honestly, as you say, Matt, that predetermined, like, hey, this is the exact plan where we're going to, this is the exit plan, or this is the communication plan, and and what's interesting is I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I just fall my own sword here. You go, oh, let's restore that backup, make sure that works. And then you restore it, you're like, holy crap, nothing worked at all. And like, it happens over and over again. And that's how you get better. You by revisiting it over again. Try out your communication plan. Do you have, right now, do you have all the cell phones for all your employees? And does everyone have access to that? I mean, I can tell you back in my head, I'm not 100% sure. So, oh, hey, Stefan. This is great. Stefan, one of our COO, and also always great questions. Do you think after the past year, business are better positioned for business interruptions and quick shifts to remote work, as opposed to everyone panicking that the physical office is down, with quotation marks? I'm going to say 100% yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think our clients are. I think.
Yeah.
Our clients were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Slip that in.
I think we did good there, but I think people are more aware of it. I think that with the kind of a 1-2 punch of COVID and all this cyber activity, cyber criminal activity, that people are really thinking about this. And I think what in the past, I think a lot of businesses didn't recognize the impact technology had on their revenue streams. I mean, they kind of knew it, but they didn't know it. If that
you don't know
sense.
it until it's one of the things you don't realize until it's not working. Like, oh, that was doing this. Oh, we needed this, and I think
exactly.
I think from the physical aspect that we, in general, are far more prepared for that remote work, but it does introduce other places that do need to prepare for things. So the outages are less about, what happens if we can't get to the office. Oh, you work from home, not a problem. But what happens if there is, a widespread power outage, and the people who are otherwise would be working from home don't have internet access, don't have like what's the failback there. So it's less of the
Or your main software is now cloud-based, but what happens when they have an outage? Can you
Right.
still work? Or is there something you can do in the meantime? Like we talk about like working at half power is still better than working at no power. Can you get to that function? And I know Justin made a really good metaphor about like that's why you keep a donut in your car. You're not going to be able to go 65 on the highway, but you're going to be able to get your car to the right place.
Right.
Yeah. And if your car doesn't have one, and you have AAA, and you say, well, my plan is I'm going to wait 2 hours for the tow truck, but at least that's your plan, and you're accepting, and it happens, having no idea and having to sign up for an account and scramble and figure out what to do. And
exactly.
And all of that.
Also, the reason you have 2 backups is I've popped a tire before, but my car was so old that the lug nuts were rusted on, and I couldn't remove the tire and put my donut on.
No.
So I also had AAA, and they have their machine.
Yeah, the impact wrench.
A backup to my backup.
Listen, you start going in the rabbit hole. Unfortunately, sometimes you start becoming a prepper if you go too far down. I'm just saying out loud.
There's a balance. There is a balance.
There is a balance.
Mom and Dad.
And that's, I think part of it is figuring that out, is when you've gone far enough to be able to decide that. And when early, before the lockdown for COVID, we did a tabletop exercise, and I told the story before, as we're running to it, we got to the point of what happens if power and water and internet and food are not available. We all kind of like, well, at that point, we have bigger concerns than It's
going to go to our best effort, and we're going to see what we can do, and hopefully help out who we can help out. But at the same token, if there's a food crisis,
Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Exactly.
It's Maslow's hierarchy. Exactly.
And we also always talk about risk, what's acceptable risk, and it's a business decision. So when we say preppers go too far, some of it might be we're talking planning for if there's no water, but also just what is the acceptable risk? If the power does go out and you are sending people home or something like that, you're going to miss some commute time. Maybe they have slower internet at home and they're not going to get stuff done as fast, but that's probably better than paying for gig internet for every single one of your employees just in case they have to work from home. So you're making those business decisions.
Exactly.
And I think I always interject this, that if you're not sure, it'd be great to talk to a technology partner like Valiant, and we can help with, with making those plans.
Yeah.
Just walk you through it. And it's always a great conversation. It really is. Every time I do it with a customer, I feel like I learn something new. Because it's something you didn't think about.
We're all nerds and we love this stuff. It's like,
a little too into it. Scare myself. So anyway. We're going to run out of time, and I know everyone's busy, so I was really say this is a super fun stream. It's one we could probably talk about for hours on end. And we have a really good one for next week. It's our, kind of bring it to like a crescendo of if not, when. So, we're going to talk through some of the scenarios and things that I think will be beyond just absolute experiences. And I think it'd be really useful for folks to check it out and get this. Kind of, once again, these are all conversation starters and thought exercises to get you started, and that you can take real action from. And as Matt said, making that plan before your active shooter or whatever bad thing happens. Hopefully that never happens in your office or anything like that. But if you have it, you're ready to go. So it's good. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you getting up early. To be on East Coast time. We really appreciate it. And so
thanks for having me, guys.
You're more than welcome. And please check us out next week. So at the normal time at 10:30 Eastern time for our regular live stream. So like and subscribe. Check us out on thevaliantway.com or our YouTube page. And thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.